going. Thank you, Dennis, and thank you for your leadership. Thank you for everything you're doing for us in Washington. You know, as frustrated as we get with what goes on in the White House, imagine how frustrated we would be if our own congressman reflected the White House values instead of Polk County's values. And that's fragile. But that's fragile. We can't take that for granted. So we all have to make sure that Dennis Ross stays there. We have to make sure that our legislative delegation stays Republican. It has not always been that way. I mean, I love looking at the CRs and the TARs and everybody here who have no memory of a Democratic Polk County. But it wasn't that long ago. And we, you know, we were sort of on the front lines of that revolution when Jeb Bush beat Lawton Childs in Polk County. I mean, it was an extraordinary turning point that led to, you know, Mary Lou Andra and knocking on 8,000 doors by herself to help deliver that North Lakeland House seat to give Republicans the majority for the first time since Custer was chasing the Indians around the West. And so it is ours, but it's only ours as long as we deserve it. And you can see races around the country where when you no longer deserve it in the eyes of the voters, they give somebody else the opportunity. And so I'm thrilled that you continue to believe in Neil and Kelly and me and Dennis to give us the opportunity to serve. But we don't ever take that for granted. We don't take your support. We don't take the fact that you sweat in Florida in August, shaking dogs off your pit bulls off your leg on Cumbie Road. I mean, you know, if you walk door to door in Palm Beach, you've got those little fur balls. You walk door to door in Fort Meade, and that dog's taller than the fence that's supposed to keep him in. There's a special place in heaven for grassroots campaigners from the state of Florida. But when I think back, everything that I've ever been able to accomplish began in places like this. My first campaign, we didn't even have a headquarters. We couldn't afford one. It was a big deal in the second campaign to have a headquarters. We depended on grassroots, knocking on doors, making calls, sending out little postcards we called friend-to-friend cards, because there's not been a TV commercial ever made that is more persuasive than what you can say to your friends or your neighbors or the people who are sitting next to you in church that will tell them the story about why you believe in a particular candidate. Candidate for school board, candidate for President of the United States. There is nothing more persuasive than individuals talking to people in their sphere of influence. Not mail, not TV, not radio. As a party, when we focus on grassroots, we win. When we lose focus, we lose races. And we've seen that over time at the state level and certainly at the national level. There's nothing more powerful than us motivating people to believe in our candidates and show up to vote. And this state is in a fragile place. I mean, this is a state that 5 years ago was the epicenter of the real estate and economic collapse. And in 5 years, under a Republican legislature, Republican cabinet, and real Republican governor, we lead the nation in job creation, drawing people back to our state. 94 million visitors, young people who want to build their lives here, start their families here, build their businesses here. They've cut the unemployment rate in half in 5 years under this governor, this cabinet, these legislators. In half. Crime's in a 43-year low in the state of Florida. People don't even talk about crime on the campaign trail, it's so low. It used to be the biggest thing. When Lawton Childs was governor, they were turning prisoners out after serving a third of their sentence because they would rather turn felons loose than build a new prison. Nobody even really talks about that anymore because it's so under control. We've got men like Grady Judd. Who worries about crime? 43-year low because of criminal justice laws that protect victims and stick it to felons. That's a sea change because of Republican leadership. The advances that we've made in education, I mean, the options that kids have. You want to go to college early? Go to go to Polk State High School? Go ahead. You got a kid that loves the arts? We've got a place for you. You got a kid that loves math and science? We've got a place for you. 20 years ago, that was not a conversation. That was not part of the discussion. It was, you talk to your realtor, you want to buy this house, you go to this house, you go to this school. It was like a Soviet grocery store. You got whatever loaf of bread was left on the shelf. That's completely changed. We all forget that because it's become so normal. But it didn't always have to be that way until conservatives who put students and parents first came into power in Tallahassee. That's fragile. Everybody in this room has heard Charlie Crist give a speech about being a Ronald Reagan conservative, a Jeb Bush conservative, a Connie Mack conservative. I mean, he's been to a handful of our Lincoln Day dinners over the years. I've seen him at the Lakeland and Winter Haven Women's Republican Clubs over the years give that same nauseating speech. He's a party of one. He doesn't believe what the Democrats believe. He never believed what we believed. He believed whatever he needed to believe to win the election. And he's bad for Florida, and he's worse than bad for Florida. He's dangerous for Florida. We have to keep Rick Scott in the governor's mansion. We have to keep Pam Bondi as our Attorney General to oversee that 43-year low. We have to keep Jeff Atwater as CFO to keep paying down that debt. We've paid down $5 billion in debt with the legislative leadership, and they put $3 billion in the savings account this year, just in case we get 5 more hurricanes, 3 of them in Polk County. You never know, right? But unlike other states like New York or Ohio or Michigan or California, they're planning for the future, not just slapping one Band-Aid on top of another. But it all comes down to turning our people out. And we all know that people are frustrated, they're cynical, they're pessimistic, they're done with it all. We've got to remind them of what's at stake, and that it's our candidates and our vision and our values that are the best, not just for the next election or the next fiscal year, but for the next generation of Floridians. And that's the type of energy that's going to emanate, that's going to just project itself from a headquarters like this. The energy that comes when a bunch of homeschoolers come pick up all of their packets and they knock out 600 doors in one afternoon. And all they ask for is cold water, maybe some donuts in the morning, a little bit of pizza. You know, when we first set up our headquarters, I said, what do we need to have? And they said, get the comfortable folding chairs, the kinds with a pad. Don't get those metal ones that the churches have rejected. That wobble and you have to stick the matchbooks underneath them. Don't get those. We want padded, folded chairs. That's all we ask for. Hot black coffee, and Rush on the radio. You get us that, we'll be there all day for you. You fail to deliver that, we're going to find another headquarters to work out of. That's the kind of energy that begins in places like this, goes out into the neighborhoods, and it all comes home on Election Day when Republicans save the state of Florida, send Harry Reid packing to the back of the chamber as the minority leader instead of majority leader, and put that gavel even further out of reach for people like Nancy Pelosi. That's what we can do this year. Thank you very much.